Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. We're going to have a short one. If you haven't met me before, I am Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And in that sense of accomplishment that I accomplished today, I am pooped, but I am happily pooped. And not like I was whistling while I was working today, but I was in contemplation. I was with myself a little bit with the lessons in the background, not particularly my favorite way to absorb the lessons, but in needing to get things done and a little bit of that multitasker in me. Right? I wanted that background noise a little bit. But in that little bit, I also wanted that silence. So deep into the projects, it wasn't well, it was the plan. It was on the list. I have a list of things that I want to get done this week, that I have to get done this week, because if I'm going to make some movement for myself, I don't want all these loose ends, all these little things that are just going to make it so that I'm constantly going to be playing catch up with myself. Today, it's been the same way all week of just kind of wanting to flake out a little bit, to be in my own, like I said, that contemplation, just being with myself, being with my own thoughts, keeping myself company, and at the same time just kind of taking it easy in that rest, knowing that, right, that agitation, when that hairy scary, when that busy, when that lots of company is around me. This weekend my nephew moved into the building, and in that, it was busy. It was a lot of that social interaction, because it is family. That little bit of rub off, because it is agitating. It is frustrating. It's a little nerve wracking when it's moving day, isn't it? And being highly sensitive and empathic, that we tend sometimes just to naturally absorb that stuff and find we end up getting pulled into that little whirlpool of emotions, right? And it's not something that drives me absolutely bonkers. It doesn't, right? I am a little bit wired in that, but I don't recognize why I'm wired in the moment. It's not until afterwards, when I come down to my apartment and sit myself down and make myself a cup of coffee and have one of these that I recognize, right? And then it's easy just to let it go, because I recognize it's nothing really to do with me. It's just stuff that I've swept into my dustpan during the course of the day and just kept with me. Today, I just stayed with myself. I meant to make some phone calls today, connect a little bit with my sisters, but I have been spending a little bit of time with the family, not having that roof over my head, and wanting to utilize that time that I have. And it's not extra time, but I'm allotting that time to different things that are important to me. And one of those things that are important to me are my sisters. So tomorrow, top of the list, right? It is going to be a cleaning day. When I say sometimes you gotta make a mess to clean a mess, oh boy, did I make a mess today. I went through all my camping gear. In some of those ideas of how to lessen the load in this apartment to make it feel a little bit more spacious, in cleaning those nooks and crannies, I had no idea I had so many inspiration and motivational books on hand. Like, I thought those were just Rubbermaid containers of my camping gear. And in all reality, there were two that I combined into one. And then I had a couple of Rubbermaid containers stacked full of books. Most of them not even read, right? But when I'm stocking the shelves at work, and when I was stocking the shelves at work, I'd come across a book and I would just like the title would catch me or the cover would catch me, the topic would catch me, and then I would say, "Oh, you can come home with me," with every good intention of reading it and absorbing it, but just tucking it away in a cupboard or a Rubbermaid container, like I said, because I found two Rubbermaid containers of books. They're not serving anybody, just sit in a Rubbermaid container. So I don't know. I'll move them along. Maybe I'll redonate them. But because they're up my alley, because they're in the topics that I hold dear, I think maybe they would make great handouts to people. Like the Jehovah Witnesses and the Watchtower, right? Somebody needs a little bit of inspiration, somebody needs a little bit of motivation. I got the book for you. And you know what? I probably do have that book. Hello, Hanner. Hello. I hope your day was a good day. And if you're just waking up and starting your day, I hope you have the most amazing day. Sometimes it's in what we can accomplish, right? That we dictate whether or not it's been a good day. But I think at the end of the day, when you can give one of those, right? That's gotta be a good day. That's a day that you put some effort into, right? That's a day that you're happy to be home and to possibly even have it done, even if you did accomplish lots, even if it was a fantastic day, right? That sometimes just in that exhaustion, you know that you accomplished. And I accomplished today. In fact, this is my first cup of coffee in hours because I was trying to get the place put back together, tidied up a little bit. I'm going to pick up where I left off because I started some monster projects today. Like I said, I went through all my camping gear. I separated a lot of it because a lot of it I replaced with better pieces, things that worked for me, right? They could be put away, right? I know what worked for me this past September. There were a few things that I was pretty impressed with. But I have a lot of gear, and a lot of that gear I took with me on the off chance I might need it. But that one Rubbermaid container that I compacted down, it's a big Rubbermaid container. And there are other things. There are camping chairs and camp stoves and tents and stuff. But all that small gear, I got it all into one bin, and then everything else I was able to get it into a great big tote, and I'm going to sell it. I'm going to get rid of it. May long weekend coming up, somebody's going to need camping gear. And even though, I don't want it anymore, it's not because it's not great camping gear, right? I just found greater camping gear. I just was replacing it. And that money's going to come in handy dandy, right? We're putting a roof over our heads. So a lot of this stuff in clearing out my home, right? Making that mess and cleaning that mess, that I suspect that I'll be able to find a few things. And at least for once, right? For 1 month, I'll be able to, right? Pay my bills with some of these things that I just picked up because, right? It I don't know, it inspired me. It sparkled a little bit. it it I don't know, but and of course the show and tells that I was having on Sunday nights too, to make sure that we had a little bit of content. But I would have filled that up with conversation anyway. But in the end, I wasn't taking as much back to work as I was bringing home, because I couldn't even get to those underneath projects, that list that I'm trying to get done now, knowing that that busy is going to start up again, and I won't feel like, that little bit of time that I took for myself, that maybe, right, I wasn't able to get on top of things, right? My list is well underway. Like I said, camping gear done, hallway closet done, right? I did make a little bit of space today. Happy for that. And stayed busy today. And it wasn't a matter of just staying busy to stay busy, right? I got some stuff done that I desperately needed to get done. And it stopped me from being a munchy queen, right? Because I was in the projects. And in fact, I didn't even, it was after 10 o'clock at night before I sat down to have dinner, right? Because I was in it. There were big projects. So I'll be able to check off two more tomorrow, the biggest ones. I don't know what got into me today to get the biggest ones on my list done. But yeah, well, they're all pretty big, right? And but I'm pretty sure that I didn't over apply the chores for myself. I'm not right. We're resting. We are resting. But that energy was there today. It hasn't been there all week. I got up this morning and just thought it was just going to be another sit at the desk or recuperate from moving my nephew into his apartment, and it really wasn't that much work anyway. Just use that as an excuse to have a break, have a rest, right? Or to say I worked really hard, or to convince myself that I accomplished something when all reality I didn't. But I got up today. I felt a whole lot better than what I was feeling all week. And so I thought I better apply that energy and get some stuff caught up. For why I let myself feel that decompression, right? That I didn't recognize that I was going to need that much of a bit of a rest and a catch up, that I actually ended up really needed. And I treated myself kindly in that. And if I didn't want to do anything, and there were days there, maybe not full days, but there was spans of hours where I just couldn't do it, right? I just sat here and just spaced out in that, what felt like exhaustion to me, but felt much better today. And I feel much better. Hannah popped in to say hello. And like I said, Hannah, I hope your night is going really well. I'll be having a good sleepy, and I'll be back at it tomorrow. And hopefully this is a sign of things picking up a little bit, right? That snowball that's going down the hill, slowly picking up speed, right? Momentum along the way. Sometimes it's just in the start. Yeah, it was a really draggy kind. It was really draggy, periodically draggy, but and then I'd have these little spurts of energy, and then I'd just want to get outside for 20 minutes and get some fresh air and go for a little walk, right? But yeah, for the most part, oh my goodness. Yeah. But that's the intent, because what pushes up against me, if I don't push up against that, then that's the winner. The the push is the winner. And right, I'm not going to feel good in that. It almost feels like giving up, succumbing, is that the word? Uh, to whatever is pushing at me. And it wasn't a matter of pushing back today. It just felt like a little bit of a release, a little bit of relief. And I'm going to feel much better tomorrow when right? Really, I didn't cross off those projects I did today because I got the job done, but I didn't get it to the state perfectly where I wanted to do, right? There is the cleanup. You got to make a mess to clean a mess. And I believe that. And I tell you, if you had been standing here with me 2 hours ago, oh my goodness, you wouldn't have been able to see any of that. Well, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it was messy. I had to hold on to things as I moved around. Otherwise, I just would have tripped over something. Okay, you guys, today we're just going to do a couple of minutes. We're going to pull a card here. I did have a topic of discussion, and it was going to come in this afternoon, as always the intent, right? It was going to come in this afternoon. But it was in my projects, and so I wrote the topic of discussion down. I was going to be talking about competition versus cooperation, right? In getting things done. It's that little bit of lone wolf and community topics. And I think, it's been I float around in the subjects and in the thought leadership community. I know what the topics of discussion are, and it seems to be high up there in that cooperation that people, are looking to better get along, not just with themselves, because I'm big on, right, getting along with yourselves, and sometimes that's hard, right? And it takes time, but our lives, right, our lives are that time, you know lots of times my sister would say, "Oh, Cindy, where do you get that energy?" Not seeing what I was up to yesterday, which was pretty much nothing, right? Well, maybe not yesterday, but the day before, pretty much nothing. Like I was like a slug, right? Whereas have the energy today, right? And it's in that up and down all the time that I just kind of gotta ride those waves in the moment. And if that energy's there, I'm going at it. And if I'm not, then I won't be doing anything in that. And that's something new for me because in the creation of the best human being I possibly can, right? I can't beat that horse to the ground in order to feel good in that sense of accomplishment that I'm going after. The only reason is because I enjoyed the time. I can't imagine me being able to accomplish what I do. And I'm not just talking about the house projects. I'm talking about working in the lessons and sitting in on conversations, right? And in that contemplations and right, I need that silence. I need that alone time. But there are lots of people doing what I'm doing, but they're doing it with children and and again, jobs that put the roof over their heads, husbands that that are in need of being taken care of, and you have to have the dinner on the table at 5 o'clock if you are that wife, right? Takes all kinds to make the world. I'm just using that as an analogy that I have no idea how you guys do that, how you actually make that time to be able to take care of yourself and make that little bit of movement in whatever you accomplish, whatever it is that you feel that draw to, right? Because I know no matter what, I am doing what I am being drawn to do. And I find that time, I make that time. But sometimes it's not easy, and I couldn't even imagine screaming babies, right? Or argumentative teenagers, or your kids dropping off their kids, right? Oh my goodness. Like, I am, I'm going to say in that moment of thought, I am grateful, right? Might not serve me when I'm 80 or 90 years old, that I'm not going to have that person there to hold my hand, right? That I'm not going to have those children who are going to be, right, trying to have those conversations in how to say goodbye, right? In my time of need, there might not be anybody there. And we're not just talking children, but any aspect. And yes, most of us will move on to whatever, right? And do it by ourselves, be by ourselves when it's time to move on. And that's a hard truth, I think, for a lot of people. And they spend a lot of time, right, reassuring themselves and making sure that that doesn't happen to appear in our lives. That's not the way that they're going to check out. But the thing is, what you think about is realized. And then once that's on the mind, it's on the mind. These are not topics that, right, that I dwell on. I have had friends and family who, right, my own father, who would wake up every single morning, my entire life of knowing him. He didn't pass away until I was 23 years. And all those 23 years, right, my dad woke up with the thought that that could be his last day, right? His prognosis was not good, and he wasn't even expected to live as long as he did, but he made the best life for himself that he possibly could, right? And I don't know why I went back to that, but it is, lots of times in the lessons that we get in our own experiences, right? Where we get an opportunity to stretch ourselves a little bit. And, right, I am grateful for that recognition of what makes me feel good. But, right, that sense of accomplishment, it can't be one of those, right? Because I understand that, you know, I am a sensitive. I am uh, very empathic that way, that things do affect me. And, like I said, being around my family yesterday, you feel all of that. And sometimes you move through that and you play it out, right? But not even recognize what you just played out until you actually get into that safe space, which is, for me, this is my safe space. And then just give myself one of these, oh, right? And I have to be able to do that, right? Makes it possible so that when the family gets together, that I can manage to get through it, because I know it's only going to be in the moment. But in the lessons, right? Cindy can put up with that, right? I can put up with that. But there are other parts of me, right, that struggle in call it that kind of energy. I don't know, right? But there are parts of me that struggle. And so I have to make that executive decision sometimes. I have to pay attention when I'm doing a little bit of this, or I'm really striving to accomplish, right? and I make it as enjoyable for myself as I can, making sure that the content that I love is in the background, or if there's nothing at all, but in that silence that I'm in my contemplation and I'm able to pick up on experiences and conversations and the to-do list, and right in contemplation, and enjoy my chores, right? It's kind of like whistle while you work, isn't it? Because I'm enjoying it. It's almost like I'm meditating, and at the same time I'm meditating, well, there's a gift at the end of that, right? With those big chores getting done. Okay, you guys, I'm babbling a little bit. I apologize that I come at the end of the night after I have dispersed most of that energy. But if there's a little bit of energy still there, and I suspect that there is, right? Because I'd still smiling. I would be smiling. I would have only been in here for 5 or 10 minutes, and then it would have been a short one, and I would have made a polite and courteous exit on my day, right? And really, I would have felt good with that because of that sense of accomplishment, right? But if I had done that, I would have pushed a little bit too hard in what was pushing against me, meaning, right, that I didn't treat myself well, that I made sure that the projects were completed. No, I just tidied up the mess so I could walk around it, and I'll get up tomorrow and I'll start up right again. Okay, let's pick a card. 2 minutes, you guys. First impression, first perspective. We'll just go at it for a couple of minutes, whatever the card is. And then we're going to call it a day. Back. I will be back tomorrow. Maybe we'll tackle this topic that I wanted to tackle today. Maybe I have a big list here. Maybe I will have felt so good at what I got done today that tomorrow I'll make it another full day, right? Be that employee for myself. Then again, I can't do that, right? But if I'm whistling while I work, if I'm enjoying my day, and if I can remember, right, every once in a while, take a step back and think, oh my goodness, how do those mums do that? Right? Right? Here I am all by myself, peace and quiet, nobody in my way. I'm able to get things done, right? How do they get it done? With the screaming babies and right husbands that are looking for their shoes, and a dog that needs to be taken for a walk, and you still got groceries to do, and you wanted to go do a little yoga, or you wanted to do right go and do something for yourself, and you can't because your sense of accomplishment has got you going 100 miles an hour, and yeah, you actually end up working for yourself. Working for yourself is a good thing. It is. I got lots done. But make sure if you're working for yourself that you're whistling while you work. Okay, you guys, here we go. This is the card right here. Oh, we've gotten this card a couple of times. Presence. It's something that I'm working on. It's the first thing that came into my mind because me and my nephew were having this conversation because I don't get to have on the topics that interest me. There's not a lot of people. It's pretty deep stuff. You got to be like a minor in philosophy. This is the way I think, right? And me and him, he's much smarter than I am. Like I have to stop him every once in a while to explain something he says, but he's a good listener too. So we were actually having a really, really good conversation, and he gave me a compliment in being able, because he doesn't normally have these conversations unless he's online, because he does have some friends on Brainiacs online that he socializes with, but in person, he doesn't have those people. I was lucky when I was at work. I had a couple of girls that I worked with that were on a different kind of experience, but at the end of the day, it was the same thing. They were just their interests and their nurturing in their life, right, took them in directions, different directions, but they were doing the same thing as I was doing. And so it was really kind of nice that I was able to have these conversations. So before I stray off too far down a side branch in the when I'm ready to call it a day, um, but it was really nice to have people to talk to about some of these subjects. And even if they didn't agree with some of the things that I talked about, or I didn't agree with some of the things they were talking about, we were ears for each other. Okay. So for getting back into this word present, so when I was talking to my nephew yesterday, and he paid me that nice compliment about, how I was able to keep up in the conversation with him. That it was nice to be able to, right, understand and have a conversation with somebody who kind of got what you were talking about. But with me, it's a little bit different because with him, I had to kind of stop and was like, can you explain that? Or what does that word mean? Because he's like a walking dictionary word. It's a walking dictionary. Words that I've never heard before, right? Can you use that word in a sentence for me, please? Right? But for me, it's the layman's, right? Because that's who I am. And my audience is just the everyday, day to day, right? And even though we all come from dynamic upbringings, that you may be highly sensitive and empathic to, maybe you live that solitude, maybe you don't have kids and a husband or a wife, right? But in that layman's, right? Because we are just regular, normal, everyday people. But these experiences that we're having, these are experiences that a lot of people are having in this world. You look around, what is going to be the cool thing? Guaranteed. I was telling my brother in law too yesterday, right? Within 5 years, it's going to be the cool thing to be woke. And unless you're a highly sensitive and an empath, you're not going to be able to recognize what is influence and what is manipulation, because everybody will be working on abundance, guaranteed. It's what drew me into mindset for sure, was in trying to save my brand. But anyway, getting back to this word presence, my nephew said, you have some really amazing creative ideas that make sense, some ideas that have come across my, right, but it's really neat how you structure them and you work them in, right, that it's almost like, for me, it's in the prerequisites of the lessons, right? So that's the pyramid that I'm using. We're starting here and we slowly build up. But maybe that's not necessarily the way it really is, because he said to me that I do need to have a structure. He had a word for it, a fancy word that you need a dictionary for. Um, but he said that I needed to structure it in a way that, any question that comes at me in what I'm doing and what I'm pursuing and in those goals and dreams and ambitions, those things that I know to be true for me, the things that I believe. right? Those things that I believe that are important, that are needed to come to the surface. Because if they don't come to the surface, and it's not like, right, to get it down people's throats and get them to choke on it, but just to get it to the surface so that at very least it can be recognized, right? And he says, you have that presence, Cindy. Like I have that presence. I don't talk the way he does. I don't use those big fancy words. And lots of times I will struggle with some of those words, even in the the pronunciation of them, let alone the what they mean, these words, right? And how to fit them into a sentence. But that's not who I am, right? I'm Cindy. I'm every day to day. I am right. I'm not going to say normal because I am dynamic. I can't help be but be dynamic. I come from dynamic. But of course I want to fit in. So in practicing, right? And that's what it is. It is in what we bring to the table, how we bring it to the table. And how I want to bring it to the table is in layman's, because the people that might be able to have something to give, that might be able to shine in a way that it actually could do some good in the world, they're right down there where I am, where I was, right? That's where they are. And if I was meant to come to the surface like that, right? There are others that, right? They need to come to the surface too. And how are they even going to be able to recognize it, right? That's why we do this. That's why we need that presence, right? It's that person who takes the first step that comes to the surface, because if I don't come to the surface, the person who needs that lesson, that person who would recognize the conversation that I'm having, because we are talking the same, right? Maybe they don't have a great vocabulary when it comes to those long words, too, right? Maybe they wouldn't understand my nephew, but they might understand me. And that doesn't mean that my nephew has more presence than me, right? Maybe he has the same presence of me. Maybe I have more presence than he does, right? It is in that audience, it is in those other characters who are rubbing shoulders with us, where we have that opportunity to come to the surface and be that evidence for others that it can be done. That's where presence lays, right? That's where presence lays. And that presence can come from a janitor in a high school, right? It can come from the garbage man who picks up your garbage every Tuesday afternoon, right? It could be that homeless person on that street, right? Asking for a little bit of help. That presence is there, and I've seen this kind of presence in these kind of people. Because why? Because they come to the surface, because they know if they don't, right, that somebody else might not recognize, right, that there is a better way, a different way, right? Or somebody who's at that state, somebody who's just a regular Joe, just a normal person, just a regular grandma, right? Or mom with a dozen kids that they got to take care of. That if they can manage to come to the surface and find a way to express, you know, what they've learned in their beautiful lives, right? Even a hard life is beautiful. It's all in the way that we move in them. Like today, whistling while I was work. Maybe it wasn't whistling, but in that contemplation, right? But yeah, presence. What did I write here? Presence. Presence is having the determination and courage to step forward, to be seen and to be heard. Presence coming to the surface, right? To be the evidence, not just for yourself, but for other people, right? Because now they can see you, now they can hear you. Okay, you guys, that's my good chair. I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, Hannah, for popping in. For those of you who pop in later, I hope you're having an amazing night, an amazing day, an amazing week. We'll talk again tomorrow. Bye bye.